Hi everyone, this is Brady Haran. I make the Numberphile podcast and the Numberphile videos. For something a bit different today, you're going to interview me. I'm not going to get to be the interviewer and hide behind the camera or the microphone. I'm going to answer your questions. A bunch have been sent in by Patreon supporters and Twitter followers, Facebook followers, all that kind of stuff. I've collated them a little bit into groups. There was some duplication and there were too many questions to do all of them. So sorry if I don't ask your question or it's wrapped in with another one, but I appreciate everyone who got in touch. All sorts of great questions, from things I expected to things I didn't. I'll do my best. It's quite a weird feeling, sort of sitting on my own, not having someone to interview or talk to. It does feel odd, but hopefully it works out. I'm closing my eyes and trying to imagine you're all here with me. First, a question from Raz. Raz said, first of all, sound check. What did you have for breakfast? Raz is obviously showing a bit of insider knowledge there. A lot of people who do my job ask a question at the start of all interviews to sort of calibrate the sound levels. It's something arbitrary, and most people just tend to ask, what did you have for breakfast? Because it's a question almost everyone can answer. They'll answer with a sentence or two, and you can use those few seconds to check the audio levels on your equipment. I've also made a compilation video many years back now where I put together all the sound checks. I think I called it What Do Mathematicians Eat for Breakfast? What did I have for breakfast today? Well, I'm recording this very early in the morning because there's some construction work being done near my office, and I know a whole bunch of drills and jackhammers are going to start later on. So I've gotten up very early to record this, and it means I actually haven't had breakfast yet. If you'd asked me another morning, I may have answered steel-cut oats, which is a new thing I'm experimenting with at the moment, and I really enjoy them. Steel-cut oats, check it out. A few questions along these lines. No Lord said, what is your relationship with mathematics? Did you study it? What do you like about mathematics? Bryn asked, what's the highest level of math or maths you completed in school? What got you interested in math? So to answer that about myself, I have no mathematical education beyond high school. I did it to the end of high school. I'm Australian. I studied Mathematics 1 and Mathematics 2 in Year 12, so I was doing all the proper math. But I did know that I wanted to become a journalist, so I was also studying English, and it was my intention to go to university and study journalism. But I was also doing chemistry and physics. Basically, I studied chemistry, physics, maths 1, maths 2, and English in high school. But I chose the physics and the chemistry and the math because I enjoyed them, but also because I found them quite easy. Like they were almost like easy marks for me. I wasn't really a very hard studier at school. I wasn't very bookish. But I found I wasn't an exceptional student, but I found it quite easy to get good marks in those subjects, and it's probably one of the reasons why I chose them. And I didn't study any more mathematics after high school, so my mathematics education does not go very high. It is not very deep. Funnily enough, I think that helps with Numberphile, that I'm a bit of a layman and haven't got a deep knowledge of mathematics. It perhaps makes me ask those kind of, in quotation marks, dumber questions that not everyone else would ask. But I did enjoy mathematics. My teacher was a man named Mr. Potter. Hello, Mr. Potter, if you ever happen to listen to this. There was a very small number of students in my year level who did mathematics at that level, so there was just sort of 5 or 6 of us in the classroom. So we had a very good relationship with Mr. Potter. It was lessons were very fun. Not because of the mathematics. I think maybe because we all found the mathematics so easy, Mr. Potter was able to kind of whiz through it and then just talk to us about other stuff like golf and life and philosophy, which we really enjoyed. And I think that positive experience with my mathematics education probably helped as well. That math lessons were just a fun experience with like-minded people. I know not everyone's lucky enough to have that. KM says, what was the origin story for Numberphile? How did you get from being an Adelaide news reporter to the BBC to YouTube? I mean, what version of that answer do I give? There's a very long story and a short story. I'll probably lean towards a shorter version. So basically, I did get good enough marks to go to university, to study journalism at the University of South Australia. But straight out of high school, I applied for a newspaper cadetship at the Adelaide Advertiser. Adelaide is the city that I'm from in Australia. I was unsuccessful in the first year, so I went to university for 1 year doing journalism. It was going to be a 3-year course, but at the end of my first year, I applied for that cadetship again at the Advertiser, and this time I got it. So I left university. I always said I'd go back and do it part-time just so I could get my degree, but I never did that. I did a 3-year cadetship at the newspaper, then became a fully fledged journalist. I was a journalist on the newspaper there for a number of years, 7 years, I think. I then moved to the UK. I joined the BBC, first of all on the BBC website, and then I was trained to become a video journalist. There's a whole long story there that I won't tell. I was making videos for the TV news reports basically. And then in my spare time, I started a collaboration with the University of Nottingham making science videos. And then I started a sort of a spin-out collaboration from there, making chemistry videos, periodic videos. Some of you may know it. Spinning out of that, I started a physics project called 60 Symbols, making videos with the physics department there at the University of Nottingham as well. And around this time, the YouTube videos were becoming successful enough that I left the BBC. So then I was just making the chemistry and the physics videos full-time on YouTube. And then a small funding application actually became available through YouTube to have more educational content being made, which I applied for and was successful, and I pitched them on 2 video channels, Deep Sky Videos, which is still going, and Numberphile, a maths channel. So I was able to start Numberphile in that way, and that one, really blew up to become my most successful channel. But all of those channels are still going. I'm sure we'll come to some of that a bit later on maybe. But that's kind of how it started. I was a conventional journalist. I started dabbling in YouTube. Bit of a long story to that as well. YouTube became bigger and more successful around that time. I was lucky. I was an early adopter. And sort of one channel led to another that led to another, Numberphile being one of them. That's kind of an executive summary of sorts. Not very executive though, was it? Javier asks, how did you come up with the name Numberphile? Were there other names you considered? That is a good question, and I wish I could remember the full answer. I do remember sitting on a sofa at a former home of mine for hours and hours and hours trying to think, what am I going to call this mathy number channel? I'm sure I came up with other ideas that I didn't like. I know my main criteria was that I wanted it to be something like unique that didn't already exist in the world, and that kind of leads you sometimes to made up words, because then you're going to be able to get all the handles on social media in the YouTube channel name, and there's not going to be any confusion. So I like having a name that's reasonably unique. So I wanted it to be something made up. So I kind of made up Numberphile, as in a love of numbers. I leaned more towards numbers because initially I wanted every video on the channel to be about a number, like somehow pegged to a number. Here's something amazing about the number 38. Did you know? Obviously the channel evolved quickly, and while I still love the videos that are about an individual arbitrary number, not all videos are like that, but I'm stuck with the name Numberphile, and I'm happy with it. It's become like a member of my family now, that name, so you can't change it or anything, can you? Let's go into some questions about the making of the videos. Elemental Sheep 2672. What does your typical week look like? How much of it is traveling, interviewing, editing, and other things? I mean, that can change from week to week, of course. Sometimes there's a lot of travel. I'll be away from home for some time. But a typical week, the most typical week, is actually all at home. Work-wise, sitting at a computer, editing podcasts and videos. That's what the most typical thing is, because editing is the most time-consuming part of the process. A typical week might involve one trip, maybe to London for some filming or Nottingham. An atypical week will involve travelling abroad for a while, going to America or somewhere in Europe or elsewhere to film with mathematicians or at a telescope or a science facility. But those are those are special occasions doing that. That's where I gather all the material. Turning it all into videos is what takes all the time. So a really typical week is just sitting at a desk, methodically editing, plugging away, sitting on Avid, which is the software I use for video editing, Photoshop, After Effects. It's a real grind. I enjoy it. It's creative. I guess it's a bit like maybe what a painter experiences, just spending a lot of time at an easel and a canvas. So it's like a grind, but it's being creative and fun as well. I don't see it just as sort of, computer work. I do see it as creative, but it's pretty sedentary and labor intensive. Takes a lot of time. Barlisk 9864. How do you know so many maths professors? Are they just your friends, or is there a more formal arrangement for them to appear on the channel? So a lot of the people I know I've kind of accumulated as friends and associates and acquaintances, and they become the regulars that you see all the time on Numberphile. Your James Grime, Matt Parker, Ben Sparks, Hannah Fry, Svesta Stankova, you name them. That's that kind of thing. Some that I then meet through introductions, acquaintances, friends of friends. A lot of it was made possible by my collaboration with MSRI, the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute, since renamed SL Math. They were a supporter of the channel for many years, and part of the agreement I had with them was that I would travel to their institute in Berkeley, California for a number of weeks every year. And that's an institute where mathematicians from all around the world go to do these mathematical programs, to do proper hardcore maths and collaborations. But I would be there for a few weeks, and because I was there, I would be introduced to them and introduce myself to them. So I met a lot of mathematicians and forged a lot of relationships through that. And also the people in charge at MSRI, particularly the former director there, a man named David Eisenbud, super well connected in the world of mathematics. He introduced me to a lot of mathematicians. He could pick up the phone and make an introduction or introduce me in person. And he had a lot of clout and credibility. So him introducing me was extremely helpful on many occasions. I think a lot of mathematicians that may not have taken me as seriously or agreed to an interview because David had made the introduction. I owe him a lot. Stapler942 says, do you have to hold the camera while interviewing, or is there a separate camera person? So in almost every video you see, I'm doing everything. I'm holding the camera, just handheld, reasonably small camera, medium-sized camera, and doing the interview and everything else in my head. That's certainly true for almost every Numberphile video, periodic videos, 60 Symbols, Deep Sky videos. Objectivity, if you watch that channel, is different because I'm in the videos as a presenter. There, the camera work and editing is done by James Hennessy. Computerphile is done completely separately from me by Sean Riley. But almost all the time, the camera is held by me. So I'm doing the interview while holding the camera, which at first is a lot to keep in your head. When I first learned to operate a video camera and be a journalist, it was, there were so many things to hold in your head. In fact, one of the early mistakes you can make is forgetting to press record. You're so busy thinking about, what am I going to ask? Is the lighting okay? All the different things you have to worry about doing the multiple jobs. It's not unheard of to forget to press record, which is incredibly embarrassing. Hasn't happened for a long time, by the way. I could tell you some good stories, though. I also had a friend who was a newspaper photographer who once drove 2 or 3 hours out to a job and had forgot to put his camera bag in the car. I don't think I've ever done that. Now asks, what is the process of making a video? Do professors come to you with an idea, or do you have to convince them to come up with something? Do they trust you if they haven't seen Numberphile videos? And Rudrakash asked, how does a topic for a Numberphile video get selected? Do mathematicians decide, or do you have questions in mind to ask them? Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's give that a go. I mean, in short, the process is different for everyone, and it depends on the person, the circumstances under which we've been brought together. A lot of the regular people you see on Numberphile these days will just make an appointment to spend some time together. If they're experienced, they'll already have ideas of what they think will make good videos. Sometimes they won't even have told me before I arrive. In fact, usually they won't have told me before I arrive. They might give me a summary at the start and we'll just get going. I'll get out the camera, we'll get all set up, and I'll say, well, what's today's video about? And they'll tell me. And I ask the questions that come into my head. I never prepare questions for Numberphile. I never prepare for the subject. I like to go in cold, just like the viewer. And I think that helps me ask the questions that the viewers are having. I know some people like to prepare for interviews and this sort of thing. That's probably a more professional thing to do. But I like the freshness and the excitement of having no idea what's coming. And I guess I'm experienced enough now to be able to adapt and ask questions if needed. And constantly worrying in the background is, how am I editing this? How is it going to look? What's missing? What do I need? What should I ask? And I guess that's just like over many, many years now, that's kind of an ability that you develop to be able to sort of multitask in that way, to be in the moment and asking the questions, but also seeing the bigger picture. You even have moments where you think, oh yeah, that's probably going to be the title of the video. Oh, I can see what the thumbnail is going to be. You kind of see it evolving. I think that also helps with the process too, though, because it lets you know when you've got enough, when you've got the video, when it's in the can. Do I need more? Is this right? Is this working? Because you're already seeing the bigger picture and the final product, it helps guide you as you're interviewing and spending time doing it. And to be honest, with the more experienced people, the people who really know what they're doing and have done it many times with me, they know all that too. They know what makes a good video, and it is collaborative. It's a different story with people who are less experienced or haven't done it before. I may have been introduced to them. It's kind of almost a bit like a blind date. I like to put the camera down and spend some time with that person and talk about them and their life, get them a bit more relaxed with me, then talk to them a bit about their work. They might have an idea what they want to talk about, but as they tell me about their work, I may see something different and tell them, you know what, I think the video should be about this or that. I think this is actually really interesting. And sometimes it's something that the contributor or the mathematician or the scientist hadn't realized was so interesting, and suddenly they'll become enthused. Oh, you think that's interesting, do you? Oh, I could tell you more about that. And sometimes that will shape the video. So I guess what I'm saying is with the more experienced contributors, they're coming up with the ideas, sometimes quite fully formed. Obviously, because we don't script anything, things don't always go according to their plan or their vision, and my questions will shape and form the direction of the video a little bit. But with inexperienced people or people that haven't made videos before, I guess I have more of a role in shaping that. My questions are more important in the process. But it's always a mixture, and it's different from person to person. Have I answered everything? Do they trust you if they haven't seen a Numberphile video? Well, there are different levels of trust. Normally I'll send them a few videos beforehand. Hopefully they may have seen them. I find most people in the mathematics community have heard of Numberphile now because it's been around long enough. So there's a little bit of recognition that, that it's sort of trustworthy and it's going to be okay. But it's still a difficult time for them, I imagine, for some of them, having a camera shoved in their face and being exposed in that way to questions that they aren't prepared for. But I think building that trust, particularly before we start filming, is kind of part of my job. It's part of what I need to do, and I try hard to do it. Bryn asks, how often do you reshoot a scene because of a mistake in the guest mathematics so they can present it correctly? Yes, that does happen, even with the world's best mathematicians. Fields medalists make mistakes. If you've ever been to a lecture, a maths lecture, they make mistakes all the time on the chalkboard and just wipe them off and continue. It's almost like misspeaking or a typo. It's just a normal thing for a mathematician. Because we use the brown paper, if a mistake is made in a way that I don't think I'm going to be able to edit around visually with graphics or cropping the shot, sometimes we'll rewind and go back a bit just so we can use a fresh piece of paper and eliminate that mistake visually. Sometimes we just need to redo a sentence. It's really common. Before we start, I say, look, this is going to happen all the time. If you make a mistake, just stop, go back, we'll do it again. I make mistakes. Sometimes I'll be pointing the camera in the wrong way, or it'll be out of focus, or I'm pointing at their face when I should have been on the paper, or I'm at the paper when I wanted to be on their face. So quite often I'll say to the mathematician, can we just do that sentence again because I mucked up? It's really common. And then you use editing to make it look all smooth and clean. Or if the mistake is funny, you leave it in, because that just shows people that we're all human. And I think that's a really wonderful thing to show. And I hope that people realize that's part of what Numberphile is. It's not a textbook. It's not the Wikipedia page. It's human beings being human beings and doing mathematics. And John P. says, no need to mention names, but have you ever been in a situation where the expert giving the talk has gone blank and you've had to help them out? Yeah, sometimes people will have a mental blank, don't they? And just stop for a second and go, oh, what was I saying? I can't remember. We all do that. So we just stop the camera, regroup. I don't think I really help them out. I haven't got the mathematical knowledge or chops to help out. Sometimes I notice them make mistakes, like, oh, did you mean B there instead of A? Or I think those two numbers you added together are incorrect. That does happen occasionally, amazingly. But again, that's just normal. Like, that's just part of the process. But I don't think I could help anyone out at a fundamental level. I just haven't got the knowledge. Bryn again says, are there any videos that have already been filmed that were scrapped and never shown for any reason? That does happen. I wouldn't say scrapped, but sometimes I'll make lots and lots of videos in a week. Like, say I was up at MSRI for a week and I film 20 videos in a week. The ones that I'm really enthused about, I edit quickly. Other ones may take a while, sometimes a year or two till they find their way down the pipeline. And some, if I'm not that enthused about them, or I've kind of forgotten about them, or they just didn't really pop for me, sometimes they never make it. They fall by the wayside. Sometimes I'll go back a year or two later and think, oh, can't believe I forgot that interview. Let's do it. So there are some that haven't seen the light of day, never because they're not good enough or unsatisfactory, just more because I can't keep up. I can't keep up with the hose pipe. It all comes out so fast. I film more quickly than I can edit, and some have fallen by the wayside as a result. Usually because they're the ones that haven't enthused me as much, but sometimes also because of my incompetence and mismanagement. Eric says, how often do you try to do a video about a topic and end up not putting it out because even the simplified version of the topic is still just too complicated for Numberphile? I'm trying to think if that happens. I started the Numberphile 2 channel for multiple reasons, and one of them was so that I could put videos on there that are for that more specialized audience. So the main Numberphile audience wouldn't go, whoa, what the heck is that? I can't handle that. I kind of always think that Numberphile 2 subscribers have kind of bought into the more complicated videos. But a lot of the time I end up saying, let's just put it on the main Numberphile channel and see what happens. And sometimes those are the most successful videos. Sometimes I'll talk with the contributor themselves and Pete McPartlin, who does a lot of editing with me and animation. I'll say, do you think this is a Numberphile 2 video? And people will say, I don't know, 50-50. And I'm kind of think, if I put it on Numberphile 2, a whole bunch of people will miss out on it, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm not always the best judge of whether something should be on Numberphile or Numberphile 2, but it's pretty rare for something to not see the light of day at all because it was too complicated. If something is that complicated, we probably wouldn't start filming it in the first place. And if we start filming it in the first place and it is really, really, really complicated, then I'm not doing my job correctly. And I feel like it's my job to steer the ship into less complicated waters. And I feel like a lot of the time, I kind of manage to do that. You may disagree. Can I just take a minute at this point to thank Jane Street for sponsoring this episode of the podcast and sponsoring Numberphile in general. You've probably seen on Numberphile videos, they're like the main channel sponsor. Really appreciate them. They're not really trying to sell anything. They're like a quantitative trading firm, but they're not like trying to get customers or anything. They sponsor Numberphile for a couple of reasons. One is they just really like the channel and they really like that kind of content in the world and on the internet for sort of curious, inquisitive people. But also, they want to hire like the best, smartest, cleverest people in the world to work for them. So they figure if people who watch Numberphile, for example, have heard of Jane Street, that will help them. Maybe some of those people will end up working there. And it's a really great place to work. I've been to their office in London. I know people who work for them. The offices are ridiculous. They're amazing. I would love to work there if I was smart enough. They've got great facilities. They really look after their staff. They've got these great restaurants and games rooms and really super modern, awesome offices in awesome places. All around the world they have offices. And at the moment, as I'm recording this in August 2006, they are doing their annual call for interns. You can apply for an internship there. And these are like Willy Wonka golden tickets. These are amazing opportunities. You can do them in New York, London, Hong Kong, but you don't have to live near those places. Jane Street will pay for your travel to get there during the internship. They'll pay for your accommodation during the internship, and they have like pretty competitive compensation packages while you're doing it. This is a real great chance to sort of pull back the curtain and see what this company does. They're using all sorts of cool stuff like machine learning, distributed systems, programmable hardware, statistics. They use that to trade on markets around the world. It's a really great career opportunity if you're like a clever, problem-solving, puzzly, curious type person. Last time they did this, they took people from 100 different schools in 24 different countries. You don't have to have any finance experience. They take people from all kinds of backgrounds. Go and have a look at the website for Jane Street, and I'll also put a link in the description, the notes for this podcast, linking directly through to where you can put an application in. Seriously, if you're a smart, clever, curious person, if you're good with numbers, if you're good with computers, just go and have a look. This could change your life. This could be the start of a career. And can I also say, these big rooms at Jane Street where they have loads and loads of computers have got some of the best and neatest cable management I have ever seen. Whoever does their cables and cabling behind the computers, I'd love to have them in my house for just a few hours. Anyway, check them out. Jane Street. Internships. Back to the questions. T-Covenant Unbeliever asks, are there any differences in how you approach the subject matter of the channels? Is interviewing a professor about physics for 60 symbols different from a mathematics interview for Numberphile? That's an interesting question. Periodic videos, my chemistry channel is different because we film so many experiments and live practical things in the lab. And so many of my interviews are with Professor Martin Polyakov, who I have a real close relationship with. So there's a sort of a shorthand there and an understanding in how we film together. And the flow is different because it links very much onto what we've filmed elsewhere in the lab or at a facility somewhere. So that's different. 60 Symbols and Numberphile are probably more similar. 60 Symbols are the physics videos where I'm interviewing physicists. And they're often very talky as well. But they're less visual than Numberphile because we tend not to use bits of paper to draw diagrams and equations. So again, it's different. It's more just a talking head a lot of the time, unless we're like at the Large Hadron Collider or a telescope or something. But 60 Symbols and Numberphile are more similar, but Numberphile has that factor of the big piece of paper and the equations and the numbers and the symbols. So all the channels are different in different ways. Objectivity is obviously different because I'm in front of the camera and like a presenter and interviewing someone in that different format. And we've usually got an object between us, like a book or a statue or a physical thing that kind of becomes the focus of the interview. So different again. Yeah. Bobby Mack says, how did you meet Mr. Rubik? Obviously, I did a brief interview with Erno Rubik recently, inventor of the Rubik's Cube. I met him because he was at a mathematics conference that had been kind of pegged to an anniversary of the invention of the Rubik's Cube, I think. Can't remember what the anniversary was, but it was a big sort of celebration of maths, but also a celebration of the Rubik's Cube. It was being held in Cambridge, and I was invited to be kind of, a panelist and answer some questions about math communication and also just come and be part of the day and attend the conference. And I said, sure, I'll come. And then I said, can someone ask Mr. Rubik if he'd do a short interview with me while I'm there? And he said yes. He's an accommodating, nice man. It was a real honor to meet him. It was really fun. I've got some good stories about it. But yeah, let's move on. Go and watch a video I put on the channel recently where I received this medal called the Zeeman Medal. And I had to do a lecture, like a speech as part of it. And as part of that speech, I told a bit of a story about meeting Mr. Rubik. So rather than tell it again right now, go and watch that video because I'm also really proud of that lecture and it was really good fun. I wish more people would watch that video. I'll link to it down below. Esteban asks, why don't you visit some other countries? In Spain, we have lots of nice mathematics researchers. Well, Esteban, I do visit other countries. I visit America a lot previously because of that relationship with MSRI I mentioned, but I've been to other countries to film scientists and mathematicians. I have been to Spain to film for the BBC, but I don't think I've been there to film for my own YouTube work. Introduce me to some nice Spanish mathematicians. Maybe we could make it happen. I have to admit, I've become a father, a few years ago, and I've got a little boy, and that has resulted in me trying to cut down on the amount of travel I do, but travel is still fun and necessary for my work, so always up for something new. Valtorino says, have you ever made a video that you thought was boring? I would say the answer to that is no. I don't really find much boring. And, if I'm making a video with someone, I've probably already found something interesting I wanted to ask them about. I've made videos that I thought were complicated and had the potential to be boring, but if something's boring, it's my job to make it interesting. And, I'm not just sitting there passively. I have power, I have agency, I have the ability to answer questions and steer the conversation. So if things are boring, I'll stop them being boring, hopefully. Again, you may disagree and find some of my videos boring. You're allowed to do that. And trust me, people tell me so as well. The Math Hatter 5290 says, in the early days, making Numberphile seemed more like a side hobby or simple project, at least to me as a viewer. Easy enough to ask a math professor whether they have an afternoon free to film with a camera, some butcher paper, and explain a neat concept or number. Now that you have millions of subscribers and similar views per video, as well as being sourced on the OEIS and other mathematical publications, has it felt more of a burden or exhausting to think about? Certainly having a much larger audience and the less friendly nature of the internet these days does bring with it increased pressure and sometimes a bit of a sense of foreboding. Like in the early days, pressing publish or, pressing the button to go live on a video was exciting. It was always exciting. Oh, wow, it's out there. I can't wait to see what people think. I'm so glad another video's out there. Now it's kind of deep breath. I hope I haven't made a terrible mistake. I hope people like it. I hope there's not something I've missed. I hope people aren't going to be unkind to my contributor who's given up their time and made a sacrifice and taken a risk to be in a video. I hope they're not going to get a whole bunch of nasty comments about the color of the shirt they're wearing. So certainly releasing videos comes with extra baggage now, but it does also still come with like an excitement about putting it out there, putting the idea out there, the video, the happiness and excitement of positive comments and people saying, I love this is great, this is fun. That still trumps the sadness of the negativity. I've written down all these questions here, but I forgot the ones that were sent via Instagram. So let's go to the Instagram ones for a minute. Basukakari5, what made you get into filming? I kind of covered that earlier, but basically I was at the BBC and I was working for online for the website. And I was doing like a lot of sort of creative, clever things there that my bosses liked. But there was no TV resulting from it. It was just like articles on the website. And the BBC's very TV focused. So at that point they said, maybe we should teach this Brady guy how to film and make videos as well, so that when he does these crazy things and all these ideas, we're getting TV content as well. So they sent me off on a course to become like a video journalist, sort of a one-man band filmmaker. And I really took to it and enjoyed it and sort of never looked back. I never went back to anything else. MJ Paints asks, what's the most memorable meal you've ever had? I mean, sometimes memorable meals are those exotic ones you have in far-flung countries where they eat things you wouldn't normally eat, like guinea pig. But I've also eaten at a place called The Fat Duck, which is a restaurant run by a chef called Heston Blumenthal. And he's really sort of a sciencey guy and really experimental. And you do this like long, like 13-course meal, but all the food's really experimental and interesting, like things that don't taste like you expect, or they're prepared in interesting ways using interesting techniques. So I would say eating at the Fat Duck is memorable and quite geeky. It's also really expensive, unfortunately, so it's not something one can do many times in their life. Barry Hurton asked, what's harder, a 9-data, 147, or a hole-in-one? I like this question. I'm obviously a bit of a sports fan. So for those who don't know, a 9-data is a feat in darts where you clear this 501 score in a leg, throwing just 9 darts. It's like a perfect round. Not super, super rare, but, you know, in professional darts, hard to achieve, you know, to throw 9 darts in a row into these small spaces on the dartboard. But, you know, doable. A hole-in-one in golf, everyone knows what that is. I feel like, obviously that's rare and difficult, even for professionals, but it's more of a luck thing. Like, you know, the world's best golfer can not get a hole-in-one, and the world's worst can get lucky on a par 3 and just dob it on the green and it just rolls in. So I don't think a hole-in-one requires as much skill as you might think. Obviously, if you're good at golf, the probability of getting one increases exponentially because you're dobbing your par 3 tee shots near the hole a lot more. But I still think there's a lot of luck involved. A 147 in snooker is a perfect frame of snooker where you hit in 15 reds, each red followed by a black ball, and it has to be only the black, so that's 30 in a row. And then all the coloured balls in sequence, yellow, green, brown, blue, pink, black. That is still quite rare. Very, very difficult. Most professionals will do it a few times in their career, I guess. An amateur player, never. You can't get a 147 by luck. You can get I feel like I could get a 9-data by luck. And I could get a hole-in-one by luck. You know, I could do both of those things in my life. That's conceivable to me. It is absolutely inconceivable to me that I could get a 147 in snooker, even by luck. So I would say a 147 in snooker is the hardest of the 3 things you listed there. I hear a lot of people saying getting a hit in professional baseball is one of the hardest feats in sport. I guess for a one-off incident, a one-off thing, I can see why that would be up there. Nowhere near as hard as a 147. I feel like I could maybe get a hit in baseball if you gave me 1,000 pitches. But if I had 1,000 attempts at a 147, nah. Could I get one hit in baseball with 1,000 attempts? I've got quite good hand-eye coordination. I feel like if they promised they would throw it in the strike zone, surely if I just swung the bat 1,000 times, I don't know. People are gonna have comments about that. I don't know. I'm gonna stop before I dig myself any deeper. I have spent many decades playing cricket, different sport, but I can't stop thinking about it now. I have stood behind professional cricket bowlers who are like pitchers, I guess, and it is hard to see the ball at those speeds. Like you have to train your eyes. A friend of mine who was a journalist, who was also quite a good cricketer, amateur cricketer, got to go into like a net session, which is like a batting cage, and faced a professional Australian cricketer for 6 bowls. That's a 6-ball over. And I said, how was it? How did you go? And he said he didn't see the ball once. He never saw the ball in 6 balls that came down to him at full pace. He couldn't see it. He couldn't react to it, and it would just hit his stumps or he'd miss it every time. But that was only 6 balls, and I feel like if he'd spent more time there, I think maybe his eyes would have adapted to the speed and that you need to see balls moving that quickly. And I feel like it'd be the same with baseball. If I had 1,000 pitches in a row, I probably wouldn't see the first 100, but I feel like eventually I'd start to see them, and then maybe I could just get an infield single maybe. I spent way more time on that question than any math question. That says a lot about me, doesn't it? Let's move on. C. Davies Design says, what number changed your life? I would say Graham's number changed my life. Graham's number, as many of you know, is this famously big number. And when I was a little boy, it was in the Guinness Book of Records as the biggest number ever created. As in the biggest number ever created in a constructive mathematical proof. There's always a bigger number, isn't there? I was really inspired by this number as a little boy. As I grew older, I would use the number to inspire my friends' little kids. Do you know there's a number so big that if you turned all the universe into ink, you still couldn't write the number, and things like that? I used to love wowing kids with it. Then, when I was sort of creating Numberphile, Graham's number was a real inspiration for that, because I was thinking I can make videos about things like Graham's number. It was already in my head. We made an early video about Graham's number. It's one of my favorites. And then one time I was in Berkeley talking to David Eisenbud, who I mentioned earlier. I told him about Graham's number, how it inspired me. He said, do you know what? I know Ron Graham. I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't even thought about ever meeting Ron Graham. I don't know if I even knew he was still alive. Unfortunately, he's not alive now, but he was alive then. And David picked up the phone, called Ron Graham, told him about me. I was sitting there in the room. Ron Graham said, well, send him down. The next day, I got on a plane to San Diego, and that afternoon, I was sitting in Ron Graham's house with the man himself, and he was teaching me about Graham's number. We hung out. He was amazing. We went to dinner. There's a few good stories from that day. Again, I'll have to do another one of these podcasts just to tell all these stories. But Graham's number was a real inspiration to me and remains very special to me. And the brown piece of paper that Ron Graham wrote on for the Graham's number video is one of the few that I have had framed and is on the wall of my office. Let's do one more here from Instagram. This one comes from Kylie, my wife. Why can't you remember your wife's phone number? That is true. In, 15, 20 years, however long I've known my wife, I still don't know her phone number off by heart. I am very bad at remembering things. My recall is terrible. I know pi to very, very few digits. 4, maybe. Mr. C.M. Burns, do you plan to do a video with Peter Schultz? Famous mathematician, Fields medalist, bit of a legend. I've never met him. I would love to make videos with him. If anyone knows him and can put in a good word for me, I'm sure I would jump on a plane to Germany. I'd love to interview him and meet him. And I'm sure the Numberphile audience would love to see some videos with him. But there's no plan. Bryn says, if you could have any mathematician living or dead as a guest on Numberphile, who would it be? Not just your favourite mathematician, but who would be the dream guest? I'll expand it a little bit to mathematicians and mathematical scientists. Obviously for views, like an interview with Albert Einstein would do well. But like interviews and comments from Albert Einstein do exist, and video footage of him does exist. So it wouldn't be that special. And obviously if I could have an interview with Gauss or Euler or those legends, then, it would be one of a kind. It would be guaranteed to be not only very well watched, but also, now I think about it, also very freebooted and stolen. But so Gauss and Euler would be good. But I think if I could go back in time and interview anyone, someone I would love to hear how they talked, see what they were like, as well as hear what they have to say and their opinions, but also I just want to see what they were like as a person. It would have to be Isaac Newton. He's a real fascinating character, like psychologically and like personality. You know, a lot is said about him sort of being difficult and an unusual man. And I'd like to get a feeling for that and a taste of that and see what he was like and get to know him and share that with an audience. So I'm going to go Isaac Newton. Bryn also asked, which guest on Numberphile do most people ask or comment about to you? Like, what person do they say is their favourite? Do you know what? It's always different. It's always someone different. Someone will say, oh, yeah, I love everyone on the videos, but I particularly like this person. And it's different from person to person. Of course, people who are more regular and are on the channel more often, James Grime, Matt Parker, Cliff Stoll, you know, they'll come up a lot. But everyone has someone different as well. Like, I find that really interesting. Everyone has their own personal little favourites. It's just a fun quirk of the channel. Hannah Fry comes up a bit, I guess, as well, because, you know, she's quite famous on TV now as well, so she's got a high profile. Sean Reynolds, 8549. Can you confirm that James Grime explaining the root 2 aspect ratio on A-series paper is, in fact, the greatest moment in YouTube maths history? Yes, that is, yes. I actually had forgotten that video existed until I got that message from Sean. I remember filming it. We filmed it outside, didn't we? I think we filmed it out in a field from memory. I haven't watched that one. I don't watch the videos back very much. I have forgotten way more Numberphile videos than I can remember. G. Sundell PhD says, what happened to the second maths joke video with Matt Parker? We did make 2 videos explaining maths jokes. The first one, and then there was also one about maths jokes in different bases, I think. So there are 2. It was a long time ago now, 12 years. I have been talking to Matt. We'd love to do maths jokes explained again at some point. So if you've got any maths jokes you'd like to hear over-explained and thrashed to death, the joke, of course, being that jokes aren't funny when you explain them. Yeah, if you've got any maths jokes that we haven't covered, send them in. Paul718 says, what mathematical topics do you find the most interesting? I'm not very good at knowing the difference between maths topics. Like, I don't always know what's topology, what's geometric algebra and things like that. I kind of don't differentiate maths in those ways. But I think I like number theory. My favourite Numberphile videos are the ones that are about numbers, particularly arbitrary numbers. I love prime numbers and things like that. So I think I'm going to go number theory. Debbie says, what are a few videos that you would put in the Numberphile Hall of Fame? I like that idea, the Numberphile Hall of Fame. I mean, here you have to have a bias towards ones that are popular or have become famous or notorious for some reason. Fame being the operative word. Mile of Pie video. Minus a 12th, cake cutting, 301 views, the Parker Square, of course. I'd probably put the 11-11-11 video in because it was the first. The 6174 video, Capricar's Constant. For some reason, it's got the worst thumbnail, just brown with a yellow number, 6174. But it just, so many people keep watching it. It's always in like the top 10, you know, of a given month. Legend of Question 6. From the Math Olympiad, and Graham's number, both the original and the ones with Ron Graham. I think that'd be a good start, just of ones that come to mind. Debbie also asked, was there a video that required massive editing, but you were really pleased with in the end? I mean, there are quite a few that have taken a lot of editing, but the one that springs to mind is one that took a long time to film and was really exhausting. And that was the Epic Circles video with Simon Pampina, because I didn't realise it was going to take so long, and I just had to stand there for what felt like an eternity as he drew all these circles, and it was really kind of methodical and technical, very beautiful. It just became a joke, and I just felt like a tripod, an exhausted tripod, because there wasn't a lot of questions for me to ask. He kind of was just doing his thing. So that was kind of epic. When I called that Epic Circles, I'm really referring to my job as much as anything there, but I was all really happy with the outcome, and it's a real classic video. Since then, there's probably been videos that have taken longer to film, and I've gotten more used to those epic stints now, but that was the first video that was a real epic stint for me, and it sticks in my memory. Greg says, how many rolls of brown paper have you gone through since you started? Do you travel with your own rolls or source it locally? What's the record for the most paper changes in a video? I don't know the record. How many brown rolls have I been through? Quite a lot. Do you travel with your own rolls? I try to, because if you have to source them locally, it can become tricky. I've spent many desperate minutes before filming running around shops trying to find places to sell brown paper. So it's best to have my own. And I do have certain shades and sizes I prefer, so I do try to buy them beforehand. At the moment, I'm favouring these nice brown rolls they sell at WH Smith. That is not an ad. How often you change the paper depends more on the mathematician than on the content, because some write really big. They write like they're using a chalkboard, so they'll write these huge numbers and equations and they'll just burn through the paper. Other ones write really small and they'll fit loads and loads on a piece. I always tell them, write small, I can zoom in, let's not waste paper, but people have just got their own way of doing things. No one asked why I use the brown paper. I get asked that a lot. When I first started, I was thinking maybe of using little slates like chalkboards, but I thought the sound wouldn't be good, the chalk would be messy. It's also hard to wipe them off and make them look clean midway through a video. And I also wanted to be able to keep everything afterwards, which you can't do with a chalkboard, of course. I didn't want to use white paper because I don't think that looks as good on camera. And I wanted Numberphile to feel kind of gritty, kind of pulpy. And brown paper, I feel, has like a sort of a gritty, dirtier feel, more kind of human and real, less sterile. So in the end, I said, why don't I use brown paper? And that has definitely become a theme of the channel. I also have all those brown papers in a storage locker, you know. What should I do with them? I sometimes think a coffee table book would be good, but no publisher wants to touch it. I could create like a museum or a website. I don't know. I do have them all. They're all rolled up in a storage locker, although I am beginning to flatten them out now in anticipation of one day doing something. Does anyone know who could scan them? It's really hard to find someone to scan or photograph really large bits of paper economically. And I'm yet to find a sort of a company or business that I think will be able to do it for me at a reasonable price. If you've got any ideas, let me know. Because some of them are really big. So like even some commercial scanners won't easily fit them. So unless I go to like really expensive boutique places. So bit of a conundrum there. Get in touch if you can help. Some more random questions. MBP from Patreon says, you talk to a lot of math professors. Do you think that math education has gotten better or worse in recent years? Do you know what? I feel completely ill-qualified to answer that question. Certainly, the amount of math educational content on YouTube and the internet has increased, and some of it's amazing, of course. I'm looking at you, Grant Sanderson. But also, there's some bad stuff. But I think that question probably is also aimed at like schools and things like that. And I don't know. And anything I hear is just anecdotal. I'm not plugged into that world. I don't feel qualified to answer it. Prime Math asked if I was alone on a desert island with a calculator, pen and paper and whatever other basic equipment needed, what number discoveries would you seek to find? What treasure would you try and unearth and enjoy just for your delight, even if no one else ever found them? See, I think Prime Math here doesn't realise that I am not mathematically skilled and capable. I don't think I'd be able to discover or do anything useful. I don't know what I would do with all my paper and pens. I'm not a very good artist. Maybe I'd like draw mazes. I love designing and drawing mazes. I'd probably just do that. They'd probably find me dead on the island 20 years later with a huge pile of mazes. What a great book that would be. Like 1,000 mazes drawn by someone who was dying on a desert island. Kind of macabre, isn't it? Saksham Rai asked, if you had to teach math to aliens who don't use base 10, what number would you start with? Again, that's a cool question. Just like the last question was a cool question, but I don't have like the skill to answer that or the knowledge to answer that well. Yeah, I like it though. Miroslav says, what's that map that stands on the floor in your room when you host some videos? It looks like the tip of South America. Plus it looks like a nautical map, but I've always wondered about it. Miroslav, you're correct. It is a nautical map and it does show the tip of South America. It also shows part of Antarctica and Drake's Passage, which is between the two. I went to Antarctica on a voyage and we crossed the Drake's Passage and I was so enthused by the whole experience, I bought that nautical map. Basically on the ship I was on, they auctioned a map just like it, signed by the crew and with pictures and stuff on it, and I so wanted to win it, but I didn't. So I went and bought a similar map when I got home and had it framed, but it's so big I haven't been able to hang it on the wall yet. So sometimes you've seen it there leaning against the wall, but that's what it is. Beena6575 says, what's a fun fact we don't know about you yet? I don't know if you guys know, but I do a podcast called The Unmade Podcast with my great childhood friend, someone called Tim Hine. And we talk about all sorts of stuff there in our life and stories and anecdotes and that. And I feel like there's almost nothing about me that I haven't talked about there on the internet or on Hello Internet, another podcast I used to do. So I feel like there's not much to say about me that's not already out there, other than stuff I wouldn't want to share. So, but if you've never listened to the Unmade Podcast, go and check that out. I'm really proud of it. It's really fun. It's my friend and I trying to be funny, but also having discussions. But the shtick of the show is we come up with ideas for podcasts that, we'll probably never make. And it's all sorts of wild ideas and crazy ones and serious ones. And it's really creative and fun. And there's been lots of jokes and stories. And I really enjoy it. Unmade Podcast. I'll link to stuff like that in the notes if you want to check them out. Get Spiked 6 says, soup or salad? I choose soup. Living Murphy's Law says, if a magical genie came up to you and offered you the solution for exactly one of the Millennium Prize problems, which would you choose? I would choose the Riemann hypothesis. I'm sure I wouldn't understand the solution the genie gave me, although maybe a genie could come up with a really simple one. But that feels to me like the glamour one. That's like the holy grail. Walterino says, is there a video someone else made that you wish you had made? Not really, no. There are lots and lots and lots of videos better than any video I've ever made, but it doesn't mean I wish I made it. I'm just glad someone did. Occasionally a video might get made that's something I'd been thinking about or I've always wanted to do. Then I might get a little bit envious because it's been taken off the table a little bit, or I would like to have had that experience too. But for the most part, I don't really think like that. Sean C. Kennedy, author, says, whatever happened to Bible decks? I really felt like there was a niche that it filled, but I suspect that the reason it was shut down is because I was the only one in that niche. Bible decks was a series of videos I made about every book of the Bible. One of the main reasons it shut down was that we did every book of the Bible, plus some bonus videos. So it was kind of mission accomplished. But also that series wasn't wildly popular. People watched them and I'm glad they did, but it certainly wasn't self-sustaining on, advertising income. And we were very lucky to receive funding from the University of Nottingham to make it with the theology department there. And the funding ran out. It was before the days of Patreon, and like I said, it's not an appealing channel for advertising. So it just, it wasn't able to sustain itself. And I do some things for the fun of it and, make a loss on them, but I can only do so many of those. And Bible Decks kind of felt like it had had its time and done its thing. I'd love to do it again though. I loved filming in Israel. If you've never seen Bible Decks, go and have a look at them. They're not religious videos. They're kind of just, they're supposed to be quite academic videos about books of the Bible. I was really proud of it, really enjoyed it. Paul71H, have you ever recorded a video that you just couldn't post on the channel for one reason or another? I've kind of covered this. I once did a video for Objectivity, and in Objectivity, which are videos about science objects and that, we film most of them at the Royal Society, and you may know we have a little sub-series there called White Gloves of Destiny, where we put on these white gloves, close our eyes, and a guest will take a card from the card catalogue at random, and then we will go down to the vault and find out what that card refers to, look at the documents or the object, and make a video about it. And we did do one of them where the card was taken out with a special guest. We went down to the vault and started making the video and reading the document. And it turned out the document was really inappropriate. It was the wrong tone for Objectivity. It dealt with some sensitive issues that, are fine to explore, but we felt like we weren't prepared mentally to explore and we wouldn't have done them justice, and it just felt wrong. So that was one time that we started making a video, and then at the end we said, we probably can't publish that really. And we haven't. So there you go. I've whet your appetite there, haven't I? Michael from Patreon says, if there is one, what's the video on Numberphile you like least or are least proud of? There is not a video that I feel answers that question. I don't like watching my videos back. Every video I watch, I'm disappointed by. I think could have been better on my behalf. I could have done a better job with. There are a few of my videos that I watch back and think, yeah, I'm happy with that. That's good. I enjoyed that. It's kind of, I'm not a perfectionist, but it's that kind of trait people have when they look at their own work. So, I could certainly criticize a lot of my back catalogue. One video of mine that I do go back and watch and still enjoy, though, is one I did for periodic videos about boiling water at different altitudes on the walk up to Mount Everest. I'll try and link to that below if I remember. Boiling water at Everest on periodic videos. I do like that one. Michael also asked, what's your favourite OEIS sequence, the online encyclopedia of integer sequences? I mean, I like so many. A lot of the ones I've done with Neil Sloan, the encyclopedia's creator, are some of my favourite videos on Numberphile. Is the Brady sequence, the jokey Brady sequence that Matt Parker created on there? I guess I have to answer that, don't I? I also like ones that are like really silly for some reason, like just the same number over and over again. Some final questions. Hitchhiker's Pie. What do you think Brady of 5 years ago would be most surprised to find out about now? Probably that he's the father of a 3-year-old boy and how exhausting and time-consuming and wonderful that is. Satan is my brother says, as a filmmaker focusing on objective facts in the sciences, have you ever been interested in creating content on politics humanities, especially given the growing cynicism of academic truth in some parts of society? I have done some channels, I mentioned the Bible Decks, Words of the World. I've done ones on philosophy and psychology. They're kind of retired channels now, but I have done a bit. I'd love to do some more. I feel like I'm pretty close to capacity though as a human being, because Walterino's asked, would you want to do another channel? And again, yes, I would. And I have got a few ideas of things I'd like to do, but it's hard. Something's got to give. Something's got to go to do something new. Incomat, how long will you continue running this channel? I don't know. For as long as I can. For as long as I enjoy it. And I do still enjoy it. Valterino's, would someone take over if you wanted to stop? Could someone even take over? Would someone take over? I don't know. Could someone take over? Yes. I think the channel would become different. It would have a different personality. I hope sort of my questions and my sensibilities form part of what the channel is, but well, that could change, I guess. And finally, Bryn says, what aspect of Numberphile are you most proud of? I'm proud that it exists and it has lasted a long time and that lots of people have watched it and lots of people have enjoyed it. I don't have an agenda to educate the world or raise the profile of mathematics and those things. Those things happen and I'm really happy that it happens. I'm really, really proud and happy that people come up to me and say, oh, after watching Numberphile for years, I studied mathematics and it really inspired me. It changed the course of my life. And I hear that a lot and I really love it and I'm really, really proud of it. But it wasn't what I set about to do. So I feel like I shouldn't take credit for that. It's just something that happened by accident, like a hole in one. Like it's great that it's happened and I'm really happy and pleased about it, but I kind of have to admit it was luck and not really my intention. Really just my intention is to find out cool stuff because I love finding out cool stuff and then telling as many people as possible that cool stuff in an interesting and entertaining way. Because that's the other thing I love doing is telling stories to people and sharing information. And if I can make that like my job and occupation, being a journalist, making YouTube videos, that's fantastic. And all the other like more worthy stuff that comes with that, raising the profile of science, inspiring people to become scientists and mathematicians, it kind of like that's just tangential. And I'm really, really glad it happened and it has become a really important part of what I do. But it's never my motivation. I think if it became my motivation, it would kind of pollute the content and make the content maybe become a little bit too worthy or have an agenda beyond the agenda I already have of just, telling stories. So the thing I'm most proud of is just that it's been able to exist and succeed for as long as it has. And all the other stuff, all that inspirational, warm stuff is fantastic and makes me so, so happy. But as I said, I feel like I shouldn't take credit for that. It's just a nice thing that happened. Thank you very much to everyone who sent in questions. Thank you for listening. Don't forget Jane Street. Thank you to Jane Street for making it possible for me to do this work. Thank you also to Ben Delo, who supports Numberphile. And all the Patreon supporters who support Numberphile. There will be links down below to stuff I think you might want to look at, and catch you again. How about next time I have a guest so I don't have to do so much talking?